and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the awards show for the 2025-26 season. We're still dissecting this season a little bit. I mean, personally, I'm in my England shirt just to show that I'm pretty much, I've been struck down by World Cup fever now. The World Cup has just kicked off, but there's still plenty of Everton stuff to dissect from this season as and obviously I think the World Cup will maybe serve as a little bit of a distraction for us all, maybe from Everton for a bit. But for now, it's a bit of a time to look back on the season and mostly in a positive light, I think, with most of these awards. But I'm joined by Harry, my podcaster co-host. So yeah, how are things with you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I feel like I just put to bed a very sort of problematic end of the season for Everton to then try and get my head around a very problematic World Cup was kind of overcome with World Cup fever yesterday, watching the opening ceremony and then the Mexico game and then scrolling through some World Cup coverage this morning and coming across David Moyes' clip on TalkSport talking about the latest in the seemingly never-ending legal proceedings against Everton Football Club. But the bit that got me more than this was when Simon Jordan referred to us as having a very decent season and David Moyes agreeing with him. So so I need to get lost in the highlights of the season with some of these awards out because honestly, I feel like there's still an exposed nerve that I'm trying to kind of let scab over, and it's not happening at the moment.
Yeah, as to be said, I am very grateful that this Burnley news hasn't broken while we're still in podcast mode because that would definitely, I think, have bogged down any sort of Everton talk during the season, like previewing whichever game we had then. So yeah, thankfully, at the very least, that's come at a bit more of an opportune time for us personally. But obviously, yeah. We're definitely not diving into that in this video because it will definitely cloud over what we're here to actually talk about. Um, so yeah, plenty of awards to go through. We do this every year. Through the we got 24 contributors that contribute to the Toffee Blues channels who have all voted on these certain awards and. As I say, they're mostly positive, and the only real negative one in there we're going to get out the way straight away, and then mostly focus on the positives. So yeah, we'll dive straight in with the worst moment of the season. Start at the bottom and work our way up. And yeah, this one it has to be said, possibly the most clear cut on the whole list. Really, there's going to be some honorable mentions for some of these awards, but yeah, this one was pretty clear cut. You had a few votes for us crashing out of each respective cup. So the Wolves defeat back in September, and then the Sunderland defeat on penalties in January. Someone voted for the whole window as a whole, which I think is maybe probably a tiny bit harsh. And
Yeah.
but could very well be proved right in the next few years, depending on how some of these players that we've signed that go on to do in their Everton careers, of course. So yeah, definitely want to maybe invest some stocks in potentially. Um, in second place with three votes, like I said, those three all got one vote each, but with three votes was the our final home game of the season, the 3-1 defeat at Sunderland, and the the send off in inverted commas to Seamus Coleman that all kind of culminated out of that, which I believe you might have voted for. I think I might be right in saying.
Yeah, that was my vote. Again, I just feel like it's sort of that very reflective, wasn't it, of the end of season as a whole, that it just sort of felt like Seamus Coleman's send off was this sort of whimper and not maybe the I don't know if grandiose is the right kind of word because he's had a very long Everton career and obviously he's a modern day legend when it comes to bargains, transfer fees, effort levels, leadership, all of these things. But I think we said on the podcast, didn't we, one of the last pods we did this season where we said, probably that video that Everton put out of him at the training ground kind of doing a speech was far more reflective of the send off we had hoped for than what he got in his last home game as an Everton player. So it's certainly where I casted my vote. I know we're going to reveal the winner and we'll share our thoughts on that particular moment being the worst moment of the season. But for me, this one kind of topped that one just in the sense of I feel like there's something a little bit bigger and longer to it than just a one-off result, maybe.
Yeah, like I say, as you say, I think we delved into it quite a lot in the podcast at the time, and I think it was just very naive from the club in general, but based on just how poor our home form has been throughout the season mostly, to just think that that'll all be fine. We'll probably get a result against Sunderland, and it'll be a nice little send off for him afterwards. And obviously, it very much did not work out that way. But I think yeah, as good a candidate as that is, I think with 18 votes, a very resounding first place for this award. You know, the kind of not exactly the award you really want, of course, but yeah, the Derby defeat, the first ever Derby at Hill Dickinson, which I was utterly convinced we weren't going to lose throughout the season. I was thinking like at the very least we'll get a draw. That I really couldn't see us losing the first Derby, and obviously the circumstances in which it happened. Yeah, the latest Derby winner of all time. From Virgil van Dijk right in front of the South Stand. Yeah, it's got to be said. If a Liverpool fan could have written that script, that probably would have been about what they would have come up with. Salah, of course, scoring in his last derby as well. Um, and obviously the knock-on effect for that, I really think that very much like dented our season. We didn't win a game after that. I think at that point we were maybe like seventh, and had a chance of like going into sixth above Liverpool, if we'd won that game. And obviously to finish as low as 13th after a really poor end to the season. Yeah, it's definitely fair to say that game did a lot of damage, not even just on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I echo all of your sentiments there. I think we talked about it on the pod. I think it was a pretty common theme across most Evertonians in the week building up to that game was these are awful, and we've just kind of seemingly turned a little bit of a corner at home. And obviously, it was off the back of the Chelsea result as well, just before that international break. And there was a really kind of like good feeling around that derby. But I've got to say, upon reflection, I think in history we've kind of been told to know that a wounded Liverpool is a more dangerous Liverpool coming into a derby. I think over the years we've done all right when we're sort of expected to take a bit of a thumping, or when Liverpool are on the road to something a little bit bigger and we kind of get to put a bit of a dent in that road, or a bump in it rather. But I think if anything, they very much enjoyed a role reversal on that day of being the spoiler. And obviously for them, it was about protecting being above us and securing Champions League football. They had their own business to take care of. But as you say, I mean, they definitely couldn't have written a better afternoon for themselves. And subsequently, I think there's a lot we could go into that we won't on this video, because this is the awards video and we want to move on from the worst moments and look back at some of the highlights. But there's a whole video that we could sit there and do about the mentality around Everton Football Club this season. And I agree that was possibly a very strong candidate, clearly, for worst moment of the season. But for me, you can't say that one is then the domino effect for what followed. I think there was plenty of other moments we had chances to pull ourselves out of that slump and didn't take them. So I agree, it was the latest in a long line of really miserable derby days. But honestly, I think that the idea that that was the catalyst for what then followed, I don't fully buy into that. But I think that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, absolutely, fair enough. And yeah, to be honest, it kind of segues quite well into the next award. To be fair, and of course the best moment, as I say, we've put the negatives to one side now, and it's much more positive speak from this moment forward. But an honourable mention for this one was Njai's disallowed goal again in that game. And again, a very much a sliding doors moment, because if you remember, we started that game incredibly well, really on the front foot,
Mm.
and seemed to be, playing up to the expectations that we've just talked about there. The fact that, as you say, Liverpool weren't in the best of form, whereas we were really looked like we turned a bit of a corner, and we kind of played up to that for a while, and then to finally go ahead around the half-hour mark, only to have it chalked off for a very narrow offside, you could tell really put a dent in us. But someone has actually picked that individual moment, where celebrating that goal, thinking it's going to be allowed, as the best moment of the season, which I think really just goes to show that there is an argument for just that being such a sliding doors moment, not just for the game, but for our whole season. It kind
Yeah.
of all lends itself to that. Um, to be fair, there are plenty of nominations for this moment. This was definitely a lot more of a split vote. So just I'll rattle through some of the honourable mentions here as well. Someone picked the signing of Jack Grealish when that was first announced. The 3-3 draw with Manchester City. The tifo, the first ever big tifo that we did at the Hill Dickinson for the Arsenal game back in December, and the whole pre-match ceremony there. Barry's winner at St James's Park in the 3-2 win there. The first ever game at Hill Dickinson Stadium, the 2-0 win there. And then another very good moment as well, also from that Newcastle game that I just mentioned there, which I think was also a very good shout from someone. Pickford's save
Mm.
to like put points in the bag, at St James's Park again. Another one of those moments that, like you couldn't really write in a script. It would almost seem too convoluted, but yeah, for that individual moment, definitely, I think Pickford's highlight of the season. I think he said as much at the time as well afterwards that that was definitely a favourite moment of his for obvious reasons. But in third place with 2 votes, Grealish's winner against Crystal Palace. The first proper late winner, Grealish's first goal in an Everton shirt, and again I remember that being a really like amazing atmosphere at the Hill Dickinson. Again, the kind of game where you start to feel like right, this stadium is beginning to feel like home now. And then in second place, the winner Old Trafford. This got 6 votes. Again, another game back to the wall after that early red card for Idrissa Gueye in bizarre circumstances, but still managed to go and get a win at a ground that has really been unkind to us over the years. I think it's only the second win we've ever had there in the Premier League era. But just narrowly edging that out in first place, the 3-0 win over Chelsea back in March, which just happened to be our last win of the season. But yeah, which
Right.
again, I've kind of gone in with the negative there a bit too early there a little bit because I remember that the feeling after that game, we really felt like that this was the beginning of something, and I've spoken about it there with that like game against Palace earlier on in the season, feeling like it was beginning to feel like home. But I think again, we spoke about it on the podcast a lot of the time. This really felt like the proper housewarming game, and like right, we have arrived now. This is our ground, and we can show that we can batter a really good team. They're as bad as form as they were in at the time, there was still a multi-million pound assembled team at the time, in the Champions League and whatever. So it was a really like amazing day all round that one. And yeah, I think definitely a very good nomination for best moment of the season. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, that was where my vote went. And I think, there's a couple of arguments to be made there, isn't there? I think somebody nominating and Jai's Derby goal feeling, I think probably would have been nominated for the same reason we're kind of awarding this the moment of the season. Lest we forget, we're not talking about the game just yet. We're talking about the moment. And it's the fact that actually that game encompassed a series of moments, didn't it? Obviously you as the match going fan, me kind of watching on from a bit of a distance, but I think we were both pretty harmonious in our assessment of it felt like everything that could go right went right. The coach welcome, the atmosphere in the build up to the game, the weather, the kind of the time of the game, the kind of the energy in the stadium, the performance pretty much from the first minute to the last minute. The goals were all pretty decent goals as well, as I'm sure some might feature on a later category that we'll come on to. And then beating what's in front of you, which I think sometimes Everton have found increasingly hard to do in recent years. So like we talked about the Liverpool game, like beating what's in front of you, being able to really kind of put pressure on a wounded animal, and Chelsea certainly were that. So I think it was standout moment of the season for kind of arriving, and also the context of the season at the time were these question marks of would Europe come too early for Everton, and I certainly felt off the back of that game that if we'd have qualified for Europe, it would have been justified. That game was kind of a catalyst of what Everton on their day can go and do. So yeah, I think absolutely right winner there was standout moment of the season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said before, it was one of those games where going into it, based on everything that had happened that day, I think just everyone just expected us to win, and that was such a special feeling that we're really not used to. And yeah, I think obviously the fan. doing the coach welcome before the game as well, and it was one of them where it was a very similar rallying cry for those sort of games, but in seasons gone by when we've been really up against it, and we knew that the players needed us behind them in relegation scraps. But to channel that energy into trying to boost us up like towards the upper echelons of the table instead was that as a really special feeling. So yeah, as you say, I think yeah, surrounding the game itself, the kind of day itself, I think is probably what we've selected. Pretty much unanimously as the best moment of the season there. And then again, it moves quite well into into the game of the season award here as well. Because there's a few nominations for other games here. Again, the City draw at the Hill Dickinson got a couple of votes. That win at United got 3 votes, as did the 3-2 at Newcastle as well, which we've all touched on a little bit. But yeah, the 3-0 against Chelsea again. 16 votes, very unanimously, pretty much selected as the game of the season. Because as we've just touched on there, one of them where just basically from start to finish we were on top. You could tell that the players reacted well to the fan welcome and the atmosphere within the stadium. And as you say, we were able to just control the game and beat what was in front of us. And Beto uh, getting his brace and Jai like sealing the win when it was already pretty much a party atmosphere within the ground. And yeah, just a really special performance all round, and definitely a worthy candidate for game of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at those ones there that just missed out, and I mean, you could make an argument for all of them. The only one that I would probably question being in there is the Man City one. I think if you'd have asked any Evertonian leaving the Hill Dickinson Stadium that night, was that our game of the season? I don't think anybody would have said yes. I think obviously in hindsight, looking back on it, and particularly the goals that Everton scored, and the comparison from the first half to that moment that we had in the second half where we got those 3 goals. I mean, yeah, absolutely like fine performance against the title chasing City. But yeah, I think we've landed on the right winner there. I believe I put my vote in for the United one. I think again talked about it on the pod. Old Trafford is a really cursed place for Everton Football Club, and being able to go there and literally putting all of the cards against us and still managing to kind of get a win, and Dewsbury Hall getting that goal. I think it was a really nice kind of moment in the season, but you can't disagree with the kind of the total package that was that Chelsea game.
Yeah, I was going to say there definitely would have been a point in the season where if we'd been told that our game of the season would almost definitely be a home game, everyone would be a
Yeah.
bit like, how can that possibly be the case? Because obviously there were
Yeah.
so many great away performances throughout the season, whereas at home we were mostly struggling. So yeah, I think that all of that encompassed definitely shows why that Chelsea game was so special and definitely a standout of this season. We'll move on to the underrated player of the season. Again, another one that I think was that definitely split opinion. Last season was won by Ashley Young, of course, just recently retired from football, and yeah, to be fair, did have a very solid final season at us despite his age and his experience. I think really helped us out. To be fair, and there were a lot of people like actually hoping for him to stay on for another year. Really, and was surprised when his contract wasn't renewed. You could argue we maybe could have done with him, to be honest, based on still
Yeah.
the lack of depth in the right back position. But nevertheless, like I say, again, plenty of people that clearly got at least one vote here. You got Tyreek George, Tierno Barry, Merlin Roll, Mikolenko, which I think will divide a bit of opinion, James Tarkowski, Jack Grealish, and Kieran Dewsbury Hall. All got at least one vote. But in third place was Idrissa Gana Gay with 3 votes. Tua Abunan was in second with 4 votes, but the winner with 7 votes was Beto, which yeah, a bit of an interesting one. I'm fairly sure I voted for Barry in this, which again, anyone who's watched the podcast throughout the season probably won't be too surprised by that. But instead, it's gone to the player who was vying for that striker position throughout the season and basically made it his own by the end of the season, despite a little bit of a late rally from Barry in that City game, of course, that we've just spoken about. So yeah, a bit of an interesting one, this to be honest. Can you remember who you voted for on this one?
Yeah, so I believe I went for Irabunum. No, yeah, I went for Irabunum on this one, I believe. So yeah, second, well, I'm one of the four votes for him that landed him in second. We've got a on that point, Al, we can't do this video again next year with anonymity because I need to know who's seen 7 minutes of Tyreek George this season and gone, he should be a contender for underrated player of the year. And I also need to name, we need the name of, of the Mikolenko fan who walks amongst us. But yeah, no, I think we've somehow landed on the right player again there in terms of underrated. I think it's such an interesting word, isn't it? Underrated, because I think there would be lots of players in that squad that probably at times this season have performed under what would be an expected level, and I think there's probably not many that when they cross that white line and they play well, we don't celebrate them. So I think underrated and Everton probably it's a bit of a struggle, but I think with Beto himself, maybe he is underrated. I think we've both been, maybe we say it with a little bit of surprise at the pod where we said about and we obviously did the keep sell loan video a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? Where we talked about actually, are we actually at a point where we're quite okay with the strikers that we've
Mm.
got? And we've definitely on the pod been on a bit of a roller coaster with that one this season with sell them both, keep either of them, go out and buy two new strikers. Like we've been on that roller coaster with pretty much the whole fan base. But I think Beto, when he's firing and when he's got a bit of confidence behind him, which he had in that run prior to the wheels falling off, and even actually probably a standout performer when the wheels did fall off. I think he's definitely not always got his flowers, and I think he would still have his critics. So interesting that Garner Gay is in there as underrated. I think he's a player that probably gets his flowers more than most, but I think we've landed at the right winner.
Yeah, that's I think that's probably one of the more interesting ones on that. I think probably the ones I probably struggled with most when I was asked to vote for this, to be fair. And again, it kind of blends in a tiny bit with our next one, I'd say, in the most improved player of the season, which again was won by Beto last season. And he also received a vote for it this year as well. So just how much is he improving, based on this? But to be fair, I could probably justify that one more, I think, in terms of improved player of the season, because I think again, it's something we've spoken about on the podcast quite a lot when he came back into the side in that period towards the end of the season. Again, when he was scoring in that game against Chelsea, I think not only was he scoring goals for us, but I think we spoke about just how much his all-round game had improved a lot. And again, based on the fact that Barry had pretty much nailed his place in the starting squad for quite a period of the season, for Beto to have clearly worked on his game behind the scenes so much and then come back and stolen that place back, I think, but really does show a lot more improvement potentially than maybe he even showed last season, to be fair. So I can completely see why he got received one vote. Merlin Roll and Dewsbury Hall also received one vote. I'm not entirely sure how Dewsbury Hall could have improved when it's only been in one season. But I guess maybe you're thinking about him at Chelsea last season when he was, failing to really get into the first team in any sort of league match, potentially. Um, then you got Timu Abunam in second place. Again, another young player who, as we both had for underrated player of the season, has definitely um, shown some good signs this season. To be fair to him, and started a lot more games than he did last season as well. So he had another very solid shout there. But again, quite far away in the lead in first place was James Garner. Who, of course, was just definitely improved his numbers a great deal this season. Got himself into the England side as well, of course, and yeah, will definitely at least be in the conversation for player of the season when we get to that towards the end as well. So yeah, I think this is a pretty solid safe bet for improved player of the season, I think you'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I'll name and shame myself. I was the one vote for Beto, and again, I think absolutely your analysis was spot on. I think you can query it and say kind of how much has he improved when we're having this conversation about him this year. But I think if you take him from the start of the season to where he finished, he's 100% a better player now, and the numbers would back that up. But yeah, I think James Garner has almost more than improved this year. It kind of feels like he's leveled up, doesn't it? It feels like he's gone from being this sort of, I don't know, like this versatile player. And sometimes versatility is a bit of a poison chalice in top level football because you can just be shoehorned in, particularly when you've got a manager that really likes versatility and playing players out of position. But I think I said it on the pod at the time, and I think the biggest compliment you could give James Garner is he seems to have played all of those positions for Everton like he's played them all his life. I think when he plays in the midfield, he owns that and that's his preferred position. But he's occupied left and right back for Everton this season in times and has looked very comfortable there as well. And it's not an easy thing to do. So I think you've got to give him his flowers. I'm sure we will at further points in this video as well. But yeah, I'd agree. There's almost sort of far and away from the next player that I would say has improved this season. I think James Garner has definitely kind of leveled up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably in seasons gone by, because obviously he's been here quite a while now. I think he's mostly been almost like a cog in a machine, really. Just
Yeah.
kind of quietly going about his business a little bit. Whereas I think he's really stepped it up a lot this season, and kind of taken games by the scruff of the neck a lot more, which I think. I know for a fact I was definitely saying I wished we'd seen more of like throughout his time at Everton, and I know a lot of people would have been saying the same too. So yeah, definitely fair play to him for stepping up. And as you say, I'm sure we'll have a bit more to sort of say about him towards the end of this video as well. We'll move on to goal of the season. Last season, about the most obvious winner, as you could possibly imagine, a Tarkowski last-minute equaliser against Liverpool on the volley. Definitely the best he's ever struck a ball in his life. So yeah, that was definitely an easy pick last season. Whereas this time around, it's a little more split. To be fair, there's definitely been quite a few decent goals for us to pick from. Dewsbury Hall's goal against Newcastle was very unlucky timing for him. Obviously, coming when we were 4-0 down. And probably would have got a lot more attention and adulation if it hadn't been a very much a consolation goal. It's a really nicely taken goal, that to be fair. Um, Beto's first goal in the Chelsea game, which we've spoken about so much in this video, the lovely ball from James Garner again, who we've just spoken about, and the chip from Beto. Very good shout from someone there as well. And Beto again against Palace towards the end of the season in that 2-2 draw, the one that I'll freely admit at the time, because I had a bit of a choppy stream. Looked like it was one of them where he kind of basically kind of tripped over the ball the whole real time and didn't really have any sort of control over it, and just somehow managed to find a way to put it in. But once you actually watch it back properly, you realise that he knows exactly what he's doing, and turns a very good defender in Lacroix inside out. And then it's a very composed finish. So yeah, and then, again, another very good candidate there, and potentially even maybe should have got a couple more votes, to be fair. But in third place with 5 votes was the Njai goal again in that game against Chelsea, the one to round it off and make it 3-0. You have that one angle where it's like literally postage stamp right in the top corner.
Yeah.
So yeah, a really aesthetically pleasing goal, that one, I'd say, to be fair. So yeah, I can see why that's got in third place. Then in second place, Dewsbury Hall's winner against Manchester United again. A game we've spoken about quite a bit in this one. Long range, weaker foot. Keeping gets a hand on it, which ruins it a tiny bit for me, a little bit when in terms of the aesthetics. But yeah, it's still obviously a really important goal, and obviously a very well taken one as well. But the winner with 10 votes, and I will say that I definitely voted for this one as well. The Njai goal against Sunderland at the Stadium of Light, and that 1-1 draw, weaving in from the right hand side, curling it in on the left foot after like beating 3 or 4 players on his left weaker foot. Perfect finish, keeper left rooted to the spot. Just an absolutely beautiful goal. And yeah, I definitely have to agree with the other 9 people that voted for this one along with me.
Yeah, I made the mistake of kind of keeping an eye on the club's official awards this year, and obviously I think we've mirrored that because I believe that won the official goal of the season as well. So I went for the Chelsea one just for the aesthetics and for it to feel a little bit different, but you absolutely can't disagree with it, can you? And I know that there have been pockets of kind of critics of Iliman and Jai, particularly in this bad run that Everton went on towards the end of the season. But the idea that he's occupying the third and the first place in our goal of the season, suggests what he can do on his day. And we know that he's not a player that creates loads of chances for others or gets loads of assists. But when he wants to kind of get his head down and turn a player inside out and get his shot away, we've got two very good examples there of what can come from it. And yeah, we talked about the United game, haven't we? I think Dewsbury Hall it's good that he is featured and he obviously got an honourable mention for that constellation against Newcastle as well. Obviously, if we're going to proceed with Dewsbury Hall as the 10 next season, which I guess the jury is still out on that one and would probably depend on the direction of our recruitment, but he's got to get goals if he's going to play in that position. David Moyes' sides in the version 1 era of David Moyes were goals from everywhere, and you'd get a striker that was probably hitting the same numbers as a Beto or a Barry, but you'd have your Artetas, your Cahills, your Fellaini's that would pop up and get goals. So I think there is a little bit of a pressure on Dewsbury Hall. So it's good that we've got fans that are looking and seeing and appreciating the goals that he did get this season as well. But yeah, no complaints from me on Njai winning that one with the goal from at Sunderland.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, definitely a special call that one. We'll move on to the Everton Icon Award, and yeah, I think this is definitely the most split vote in the whole thing. I think there was an awful lot of nominations for this. So just to rattle through the previous winners, obviously these won't be mentioned again. If you're wondering why these names haven't come up at all in the conversation, it's because they've already been awarded it before. But yeah, so you've got Howard Kendall, Tim Cahill, Duncan Ferguson, Leighton Baines, Seamus Coleman, Neville Southall, Jordan Pickford, and then last season's winner was Kevin Campbell, of course. So yeah, there was an awful lot of players nominated for this. So David Moyes got a nomination again. Probably not the best sort of time for him to be getting awarded Everton icon status. So I'm silently a little bit relieved that he hasn't ended up winning this, because that definitely would have got quite a bit of backlash, I imagine, given the current feeling around him. But nevertheless, Leon Osman got a vote. Romelu Lukaku got a vote. Tony Hibbert got a vote. Someone who clearly enjoyed the Cult Heroes video that we made. Um, Mikel Arteta got a vote. Dixie Dean got a vote. It's a little bit mad that he's not already been nominated an Everton icon, so we might have to sort that out at some point, maybe next year. Graham Sharp got a vote. Harry Catterick got a vote, and Kieran Dewsbury Hall got a vote. And so someone must have really enjoyed that goal against Man United, is all I can say, because yeah, I think he's maybe got some way yet to secure icon status at
Was
Everton.
was
But
Keenan Dewsbury Hall one of the 24 contributors? Because I feel like looking back on it now, he seems to have had an honourable mention or a nomination in every
yeah,
category. So was he one of the 24?
yeah.
Did our interview with him
I
mean that we gave him a vote
yeah.
in for?
I don't remember his mum writing an article for the website, but I must have missed that one. But regardless, third place was split by two. James Rodriguez and Alan Ball each got two votes. Two very different eras coming together there in that one. And then similarly, Phil Jagielka and Peter Reid both played in the Legends match. So I've shared a pitch together. That's a pub quiz question for you at some point, to be fair. So yeah, they each got three votes in second place. But the unanimous winner, to be fair, with just five votes, because that just shows how split this all was Colin Harvey. And yeah, I voted for Colin Harvey, and I'm very glad that he's come through, because I know so many people refer to him as basically Mr. Everton. Came through our academy, played for us, was gutted when he had to leave towards the end of his career, and obviously also went on to manage us, of course, as well as being a coach for many years. So yeah, I think can't really have any arguments about that. Obviously, it's one maybe a bit more for the older viewers who can appreciate that one a little bit more. But yeah, Colin Harvey, absolutely Everton icon, definitely ahead of Kieran Dewsbury Hall anyway.
Yeah, I voted for Tony Hibbert, Al. So but it's a really interesting one, isn't it? I feel like when you're given that voting form, your mind just goes completely blank,
Mm.
particularly with this category, because, you dare say with a club of our length and depth of history and the number of firsts that we've had as Everton Football Club, that you'd be able to pick a name out there, but your mind does go completely blank. So I definitely went down the cult hero route, but I'm very glad that more of us saw sense and had a name on the tip of their tongue, more than I did, and more than anybody that said David Moyes as well.
Yeah, I can definitely think of a few people who I know definitely did not say David Moyes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So and unless they were just doing it on the wind up, so yeah, who knows? Um, but yeah, I fully agree with you. Your brain does go a tiny bit blank when you see all the players that have won it before, and just like, Jesus, who the hell do you pick now?
Yeah.
If all of them have won it, but yeah, there's definitely many names as all the nominations there. Pretty much, to be fair, could have at least some sort of argument. So yeah. Will be interesting to see how that award progresses over the years. But we will move on to the Women's Player of the Season award, which again was won by Sarah Holmgard last year. And yeah, we're actually going to go over to Sienna to announce this one. So yeah, Sienna, take it away for us.
Thanks, Alex and Harry. It's Sienna here from the Everton Women's Report Show, and I'm here to announce our Toffee Blues Women's Player of the Season Award, the 25-26 campaign, and that goes to Courtney Brosnan. Time and time again this season, Courtney has shown exactly why, in my opinion, she's one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Her shot-stopping ability has saved us on countless occasions, producing some world-class saves that have often been the difference between taking points and leaving empty-handed. But what really sets Courtney apart is what she brings beyond the saves. Her presence in the squad is so important. She's always so vocal, always organised, and always leads from the back. And because of that, her passion for the club shines through, and that's something that the fans always love to see. I especially think it's such an important quality to have in a player because that energy is so infectious and it has such a strong impact on the squad. When you combine that leadership with a consistently high level of performances she's delivered this season, there's no doubt she's a worthy winner of our Toffee Blues Women's Player of the Season award. So thank you so much, Courtney, for all your hard work you've put in this season. Congratulations, and now back to Alex and Harry for the rest of the awards.
Thank you, Sienna, for that one. And yeah, congratulations to Courtney Brosnan on winning the award there. We'll move on to the under 21 player of the season, and yeah, this is about the most unanimous winner on the list. We don't even have any honourable mentions for this one. It's obviously the man who's been making all the headlines in the youth setup this season, and you know, has had plenty of talk about trying to get on the bench, like squeezing him on the bench, and given our striker woes at certain points in this season, of course. So, yeah, it is, of course, Braden Graham. Who's obviously just got into the Northern Ireland senior squad. And yeah, with 21 goals and 3 assists in 31 games for the youth teams this season. So yeah, definitely looking like a bit of an exciting prospect for us, to be fair. And yeah, hopefully we wait to see what happens with him over the summer, but might even potentially be seeing him in an Everton shirt next season for the first team potentially. So yeah, definitely an obvious winner this one, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good to see him with the senior Northern Ireland squad as well. Really fun picture with him and Mbappe and all of the very sort of like pun captions that go with that. But I think we've cried out for so long, haven't we, to have real contenders from the academy setup coming into the senior team, and we know that the landscape of football has changed, and obviously we will, I dare say at some point in this video, come on to touch on Harrison Armstrong a little bit. But you know, Armstrong's been a real kind of breath of fresh air that we've all, I think, collectively as a fan base wanted a little bit more from, in terms of the manager using him or developing him. And, you know, you'd really hope the same for Braden Graham as well. I think particularly attacking in the Premier League's a really difficult one to get your goals and your assists, but he seems like a confident young lad, and confidence will sort of do half the job for you, I reckon. So yeah, really, really well deserved winner, and excited to see what comes from him next season.
Absolutely, and yeah, you've just mentioned a name there, Harrison Armstrong, and that brings me perfectly onto our next award, the Young Player of the Season award. Has to be said, you read through the list of the previous winners of this award, and there's definitely some kind of infamous names in here a little bit. So you've got Mason Holgate, Ben Godfrey, Anthony Gordon, Dwight McNeil, and in the last 2 years it's been dominated by Jarrad Brantford, who of course hasn't really been given the best opportunity this season to defend his crown and make it three in a row. Really, to be fair to him, so he's not on this list, but. You've got an honourable mention for Tierna Barry with 1 vote. That wasn't me this time, just to point it out.
Good
That's
to know. Yeah.
someone else who said that. But in third place with 6 votes was Merlin Roll, who again, of course, came into the side towards the end of the season and showed some good signs. And again, we're still waiting for official confirmation that he's signing for us this season, even though obviously we're the obligation has almost certainly been triggered based on what all the reports were. But yeah, we still quite kind of wait on that one a little bit. Second was Timu Abunam with 7 votes, and then first place, the man you've just said, with 10 votes. Harrison Armstrong wins our Young Player of the Season for this year. Uh, Again, I ended up going for Tim on this one, purely because obviously Harrison Armstrong has played most of this season, or most of his games this season at least, was at Preston, of course, in that loan spell in the first half of the year, and obviously came back and played and featured a little bit for us, but was mostly on the fringes of the first team, in terms of from an Everton perspective. Where obviously Timo Bingham was involved a lot more for us personally, but yeah, regardless, Harrison Armstrong has clearly come on a very long way for us this season, and showed some good signs in the games he's played for us as well, and as you mentioned there as well, another player coming through our academy, which again, we've mentioned Anthony Gordon there a little bit, who had obviously is now as a bit of a fractured relationship with Evertonians, let's say. But yeah, obviously since him, we've kind of all been crying out really for a player coming through the academy, and yet Harrison Armstrong definitely seems to be at the forefront of that at the moment. So yeah, definitely richly deserved, I'd say.
Yeah, I think this was a hard one, wasn't it? I think we go back to that voting form and maybe sort of names falling out of people's heads a little bit. I went for Merlin Roll, and I think I was quite surprised actually to see that 5 others agreed with me, because I thought I was stretching things a little bit, given the fact that he really only kind of came into the side on a bit of a run towards the end of the season when we were far from our best. I kind of felt like we knew that Harrison Armstrong would win it, and it is absolutely richly deserved. And I think it's a real bright spark in Everton's season to see somebody from the academy come back from loan and kind of gain the trust of David Moyes to do a job when needed. I do think it's a little bit of an indictment of where this Everton squad is at, though, not to turn this positive into a negative. But again, I really think there is a lack of young talent in that Everton side, or maybe just players that we don't associate as young players anymore. But for me, I hope next season this is a more competitive category where we've got some of these lads. I'd like to see Harrison Armstrong out on loan next season and given a full season somewhere to get a full season under his belt and develop. So there's a big pressure then on your roles and your Irabunams and whoever we might sign, your Tierno Barrys, to really kind of step up and try and make that a competitive category next season. And some will argue that the manager has to be a little bit more open to young talent. I'm surprised that Tyreek George didn't get a nomination or an honourable mention in this category, given that somebody wanted him to be the underrated player of the season. But yeah, I think you can't argue with Harrison Armstrong. I just hope it's a bit of a different landscape next year.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to delve too much into the negatives as well, but yeah, I think if you'd shown an Everton fan this list at the end of the window back in the summer, and you see that Tyler Dibling's not even mentioned,
Yeah,
you would be a tiny bit like, how has that possibly happened? So yeah, I think this is definitely a little bit of an indictment on how this squad has been used this season, because I mean, you've just said there that maybe there's not many players that you consider to be youngsters though, but I think they kind of are. They just probably haven't been used enough to feature on this list. And as you said, but with Merlin Roll, you thought you were stretching it a little bit. And obviously, if he hadn't had that run towards the end of the season, then yeah, there almost certainly couldn't have been an argument for him to be suggested either. So yeah, I think it's definitely something that we all really hope is addressed a little bit more next season, because obviously the average age of our starting squad at the moment I think is one of the highest in the league. So
yeah,
you'd hope that gets brought down a little bit, and some of these pretty promising young players that you'd think on paper coming through can get a bit more game time next season, and this can be a much more competitive awards for next season. But then we'll finally end on the Player of the Season award. Um, Again, just to quickly rattle through the previous winners of this, you've got Richarlison, then Calvert-Lewin, then Pickford won it 3 years in a row, and then Idrissa Gueye finally broke that spell last season, winning the award. Pickford got a vote this season as well, to be fair to him. And so yeah, he was in third place. Dewsbury Hall got 3 votes in second place, but I think the most concise one on the whole list, and easily the easiest pick on this whole list with 20 votes. Again, we mentioned him earlier in the video, but yeah, James Garner. as one player of the season, as you say, as he did on the officially in the Everton official awards as well. And yeah, as we spoke about it a little bit earlier as well, but I think yeah, you can't really have any too much arguments about this. Pretty much an ever present. I'm fairly right in saying I think he came off in one game and otherwise would have played every minute of the game for us this season. So super reliable, super consistent, and as you say, the versatility I think has helped us at points. And again, as we touched on as well, I think he's really put his stamp on games a lot more this season. I remember that game back at the City ground when I think Dewsbury Hall was injured, Grealish wasn't available as well, and I was in that away end. And obviously he grabbed a goal and a really good assist in that game as well, and just was absolutely everywhere. Might be the best individual performance. Obviously, that wasn't an award in this one, but definitely would have won that in terms of an individual performance of the season for a certain game. One of the best ones in years, I think, from James Garner. I think really puts a cap on a really good season for him. So yeah, I think definitely a worthy winner.
Yeah, absolutely. No complaints. It's where my vote went, which is why I'm not complaining. But I do think there is an observation listing those previous winners and then kind of looking back at this awards today as a whole is I think it should just be put on record that Jordan Pickford has not had a bad season. I think there's a sort of a look here of we mentioned his some of his saves, particularly the one against Newcastle. He's got sort of the third spot on player of the season this season, but I think it sort of also shows where we are as a club that despite where we finished in the league and being a bit disappointed with that, that for the most part of this season, we've not had to rely on Jordan Pickford to keep Everton in games or keep Everton in the league, I think, and that's obviously why he was given so many plaudits in previous years. And I think it's a bit of a sign of the times that we are looking to kick on. And when you're looking up rather than down, you're probably giving your flowers to the more creative players rather than the goalkeeper. But it does definitely need to go on record. Pickford has not had a bad season. Obviously, wish him all the best for the World Cup. And yeah, aside from that, yeah, James Garner 100% deserves Player of the Year. Talked about it at the start of the video. Feels like he's leveled up. Would be very excited to see where he goes next year. And I think actually one of the biggest bits of business we did after tying Pickford and Branthwaite down to contracts was actually getting James Garner tied down as well. So yeah, I think it's a really bright future for him, and hopefully that's a future that's at Everton Football Club as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, I'm glad you mentioned about Pickford there as well. Very very good point to make. I think there's probably arguments to say this might have been his strongest season overall in an
Yeah.
Everton shirt. I think it's definitely his best save catalogue. I think Everton did a video on their channels about like because obviously he won save of the season officially from the Premier League with that save against Newcastle that we mentioned earlier, but they did their own competition in terms of like not the Premier League save of the season, but the Jordan Pickford save of the season, and there's some really good ones in there. But as you say, good teams don't give their Player of the Season award to goalkeepers. It's teams that are at the wrong end of the table that tend to do that. Hence why he's been so dominant in the award over the years. So it's a positive thing, I think, that he wasn't as much as in contention as he has been in previous seasons. But as you say, definitely by no means that he's in any sort of decline whatsoever. But yeah, that rounds this one off, I think. So yeah, on that note, with the England players, obviously we can turn our attention back to the World Cup now, and give ourselves a little bit of a break from the Everton headache, I guess you could say. But yeah, thank you for joining me as ever, Harry.
No
Um,
worries, mate.
and yeah, leave in the comments below who you would have voted for in these awards. Do you agree with our picks and the picks of the contributors to this channel? And yeah, please like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the top of this channel for more Everton content, and we will see you in the next video and with the podcast next season as well, of course. And yeah, see you then. Up the Softies.